why is the British tabloid press obsessed with Harry and Meghan's children? There's no one creepy answer I can give you. However, I can try a celebrity equivalent, and hopefully by the end of this video, everything is all tied up in a neat little bow. Way back in 2006, the world's most power couple to ever power couple, Brangelina, gave us the world's first $1 million baby. And that's not just me saying that. When Shiloh was born, she was called the most anticipated child since the Palestinian Jew, Jesus Christ. And in fact, People, the magazine, would go on to pay a reported $4 million American dollars to acquire the first publicly shared images of this child. Angelina Jolie would go on to explain the decision roughly 2 years later, after the birth of her twins and the sale of their pictures, this time around to Hello magazine. And in her statement, she said it was a safety concern because she knew someone was coming for these pictures. And while it was a strange thing to have to decide as a parent, she ended up doing it in a way that she could control it. I want you to put a pin in that for now and fast forward to the age of social media, where with a simple click and drag and within a few seconds, you can share your proudest, most picture perfect moments with the world. So for example, this is a picture of me with one of my nibblings. I personally think he's one of the most adorable toddlers to ever toddler in the entire history of the world. However, and this is something the British tabloid press really struggles with, especially when it comes to Harry and Meghan's children. I do not have the permission from this child's parents to post his picture on the internet. And as a result, or because of that, I've placed a cute little sticker over his face because while I trust my audience, people can be creepy and kids need to be protected. And I don't know how far this post will go. Which brings me to Harry and Meghan's children and why the tabloid press in particular is absolutely obsessed with unmasking their faces. Reason number one, you've heard of search engine optimization, right? Or SEO for short. Well, in case you haven't, it's simply the process of optimizing, increasing, and improving the engagement as well as traffic on any given site by targeting a specific topic or aspect on that site. Take, for example, the Daily Meghan. I meant to say the Daily Fail. That still doesn't sound. The Daily Mail. I meant to say, take, for example, the Daily Mail. So they publish, at a minimum, at least 2 articles every single day with Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, in their headline in some way, shape, or form. Like, it doesn't matter if she has anything to do with the story. They're going to put her name there because they know once people see her name, they're going to click on the article and it's going to generate revenue for them. It's called clickbait, I believe. And they're not the only ones doing it. It is currently estimated that approximately 25 articles are written every single day across the Royal Rota presses about Harry and Meghan. And if that's not disturbing enough, here's something else to ruin your digestion. All of this bigotry, racism, propaganda is usually, if not always, locked behind a paywall. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, shucks, that's just how capitalism works. We put the thing behind the paywall so that people can pay to read it. That's just how we make money. That's just how we generate revenue. But what if I told you that the articles about all of the other royals who are still living in the UK are not behind a paywall? And not only that, the engagement on Harry and Meghan's articles, the traffic on those articles is still higher than the free stuff. So let me put that into perspective. People are more willing to pay money to read about Harry and Meghan as opposed to just reading the free stuff about all the other royals. Like, all those articles, they're there. You can read them anytime you want, but no one's really clicking. And because we're still within the capitalism, remember, the people running these papers, the people writing these articles have noticed that this is happening. And because they know they generate a lot more revenue with Harry and Meghan, they've started asking themselves, if this is what's happening, can't we replicate this model with the children of Harry and Meghan? I told you it was going to be nefarious. But let's just, put a pin in that for now and move on to reason number 2. And here we're going to look at how the British royal family operates. So while they try, a lot of the time to present themselves as a family. The truth is that these people are not a family, and they do not operate as a family. They operate as a company, as a firm, as an institution. And because they operate like a company, there needs to be a hierarchy. So at any given moment, there needs to be a person who is more important than everybody else. Currently, that's King Charles III, obviously, because he is the monarch. And after him, the next most important person is William, his heir. And then after William, the next most important person is George, who is William's firstborn child and therefore going to be king after William. And how the British royal family operates is that at any given moment, these three people I've just mentioned to you need to be shining the brightest more than everybody else. They need to be getting the best press out of anybody, which is where the British tabloid press comes in. So take, for example, Prince Harry and his sibling. When they were growing up, remember I told you they weren't treated differently just by their families, but by the press as well? Well, that's because, as I've just explained, one day William is going to be king, but Harry isn't. And therefore, at any given moment, the public needs to have that feeling of, oh, I am so glad William is going to be my future king. And the press takes it a little bit further than that, and they have you feeling, I am so glad Harry is not going to be king one day. And this is how they do that. This is just one of many examples, by the way. So remember way back when we were still kids, some of us, and Harry got splashed across all of the headlines for wearing a mustache man outfit? What if I told you that Harry didn't pick out this outfit on his own? That when he bought this outfit, his brother and Catherine, the future queen, were there. And that this outfit wasn't just randomly worn by Harry. He was going to a colonial themed party when he was wearing this costume, where a whole bunch of rich white kids were dressed in colonial themed outfits. I want you to think about that just for a second, right? And then also remember how we've never seen pictures of what all the other people at this party were wearing. We don't know what William went as. We haven't seen what Catherine went as. But the British tabloid press decided that this costume that you see in front of you is the only one out of a colonial themed party that was offensive enough to be derided in this way. It feeds into a much larger conversation about what society deems, tragic enough to be, too tragic to cosplay as a costume. Because who were the other people at this costume party? What were they dressed as? Did they dress up as us? Did they mock us in the so-called Commonwealth? And why did the tabloid press from Britain not deem those costumes, those, depictions of us as offensive? And the fact that this is the only costume we know about, I'm not going to say too much about that. But what I will say is that why was William so removed from this narrative? Do you get what I'm saying? This is just one of many ways in which the heir is protected by the press as well as the family, and the spare is thrown under the bus, because the job of the spare is not only to be the backup in case anything happens to the main guy, in case anything happens to the heir. The job of the spare is also to make the heir look better by comparison. So no, you're not allowed to see anything negative being said in the press about someone who's one day going to be king. But the other guy, well, anything can happen to him and no one's really going to care. Which brings me to George, William's firstborn child, and how the press wants to cover him, because remember, he's one day going to be king. George is currently 12 years old as we speak, which is around the same age that Rupert Murdoch's news group newspapers started gathering information on Harry in not the most lawful of ways. And I say around the same age, not to be facetious or inaccurate, but because Harry is currently suing these people. And according to one of his lawyers in court, one article, which was the product of unlawful activity, published when the Duke was age 10, contained information relating to his welfare, his relationship with his mother, Princess Diana, behind the scenes, and her state of mind. All of which to say, William's children are getting to an age where the press is starting to feel particularly entitled to them. Which brings me all the way back to Harry and Meghan's children. And as I say that, I realize there's no way I'm tying this all up in a neat little bow within the next few seconds. And so I'm sorry to have to do this to you, but this needs to be a two-parter. I'll hopefully see you in the next one where we do conclude this. I promise this will not turn into The Hobbit. And thank you for your attention.